want you to be a part of our studio audience. If you're in the Toronto area, contact us.
Before the break, we asked our studio audience, should individuals decide when and how they can die? And here is how our audience here in the studio voted. 31% said yes, 46% said no, but almost a quarter of the audience was unsure. An interesting slice of opinion on a very difficult issue. Well, we've looked at the yes side of that, and we've heard that some choose to end their life because they experience constant pain. We're going to look at this issue further by talking to lawyer Hugh Scherer. He's headed to the BC Supreme Court as a legal specialist on human rights and the rights of people with disabilities, and Jean Eklund, a nursing professor with over 50 years of experience in consulting with patients and their doctors on how best to alleviate pain. Thank you both for being here. And Jean, let's start with you. You have the same medical condition, spinal stenosis, as is the case of Kay Carter, who's part of the Supreme Court challenge in BC. Tell us the realities people face with pain.
Lorna, any pain, particularly what this lady is concerned with, is real pain. It needs a lot of treatment. It needs a lot of care. It needs a lot of putting up with. But there are many components to the pain experience. And it's not just all about medication, although that's huge. We've got the emotional part of pain, not just the physical. We've got the social. What does this do to a person, an individual, and their family? What does lack of mobility do? It emphasizes our helplessness at times. The other thing is we have spiritual pain. The pain of the human spirit is very real. And it can't be medicated. But certainly, I think nurses and doctors need to be more aware in our society of the need for good pain management.
Now, Hugh, you are going to the Supreme Court in British Columbia to fight this battle for people with disabilities. Tell us what exactly is the impact if we legalize euthanasia in this country on people with disabilities?
Well, there's a huge fear that people with disabilities are already significantly devalued in our society. They already lack access to many aspects of our social, economic, and political life, whether it's access to education, access to employment, access to transportation and mobility. And the notion that people with disabilities who are already facing such challenges should be met with a response that their lives don't warrant the same kinds of interventions, either medical or social, to assist them in terms of being able to integrate and be included in society is very concerning, because what it suggests is that their lives don't have a sufficient quality and aren't worth the same kinds of responses as would other people who don't have disabilities who are effectively living in society. If somebody becomes depressed and is suicidal in society, nobody's going to suggest, generally speaking, that we're going to want to kill that person. The notion is going to be that we're going to want to ensure an intervention. We're going to want to ensure appropriate counseling. We're going to want to ensure that appropriate steps are taken to address that person's either pain or emotional concerns. But when we're talking about a person with a disability, often there are underlying values and stereotypes that suggest that their life somehow doesn't warrant the same intervention. The choice then becomes, well, those people should be met with the right to die. They should be met with the opportunity to kill themselves rather than to have the kinds of social and other supports that everybody else in our society takes for granted.
Okay, Jean, it does seem to me, as I'm observing the Right to Die movement, that it is being driven by your age group, that older Canadians are driving the demand for this. I want to show you this visual that's out there on the internet, and there's many of these kinds of things where you have, we just call her, her name actually is Betty, showing how to exit, and whether it's Farewell Foundation or whether it's the Exit Canada or whatever, these kinds of things are coming from people in your age group. What appears to be driving the demand of your age group to be able to kill themselves in an assisted way or a legal way?
Much of it, Lorna, is human pain and suffering. Much of it is feeling like a burden. The society makes the older person, I have to say I resent sometimes being called elderly, although I well qualify. It's a burden to be having elderly around. The people in hospitals are called bed blockers when they take up room in acute care. And we're devalued just as much as people with disabilities are devalued. We're looked upon as dispensable.
And you feel that pressure is building, and that's part of the... Okay, I want to take a case, because it isn't just the elderly. Alex, you referred to people with disabilities, and one of the cases in Canada that is being pointed to, our friends at W5 have done an excellent job of listening to an ex-Anglican priest who lost his faith. He told W5, I lost my faith because Canada is not allowing people, in his case his wife's, to be assisted in her wish to die. Listen to what he had to say.
They got the tip-off from the Euthanasia Prevention Coalition, and they must have got the information from the obituary that we put in the newspaper in Halifax. Although I think if Elizabeth had known that that might have happened, she might have thought twice about doing it.
Jean, is the Euthanasia Prevention Coalition, you're part of that lobby group, trolling obituaries for abuse like this?
No, definitely not, Lorna. This was in the media, and it was picked up, and it is wrong in Canada. It is not law. It is not legal. And Lorna, I feel strongly that we are in a compromised position, and it's unconscionable for us to ask our nurses and our doctors to kill us. They are care providers, not killers.
All right, we do want to talk to somebody in our studio audience now who has very personal experience with this. Perry Chair and Maron are the wife and son of Hassan Rassouli. Hassan had surgery last fall to remove a brain tumor when he developed a post-operative complication, and it caused severe brain damage. Doctors in Toronto's Sunnybrook Hospital said Hassan was in a vegetative state permanently, and they wanted to remove his life support. They ended up losing that case in Ontario court. The family was asking for a ruling that would make Hassan's wife, who herself is a medical doctor from Iran, the ultimate decision maker on his fate. Hassan is still in the hospital on the coma consciousness stage. A year ago, he was 3. He's now 9. I would be 15 on the coma consciousness stage. I'd like to know, Maron, why you are so passionate that your father should be kept alive in this state, this vegetative state.
Every individual has a spirit, and my father's subconscious mind created his body, and actually he can heal it up. We have an expression that says that doctors dresses the wound and God heals it up. And that's why I think he needs more time to recover.
And time is what is so difficult in this issue on what should be done about end-of-life issues. We're going to be back with more discussion on this. Stay tuned.